Subscribe and download over 1 million code snippet including this tutorial from codegive.com, link in the description below. Title, Understanding Python's try, yield, and finally, a comprehensive tutorial. Introduction. Python's try, yield, and finally are powerful constructs that contribute to writing robust and efficient code, especially when dealing with exceptions and resource management. In this tutorial, we will explore the usage of these three elements individually and demonstrate how they can work together to enhance your Python programming skills. The try block is used to enclose a section of code where exceptions may occur. If an exception is raised within the try block, it is caught and handled in the associated except block, S. Let's look at a basic example. The yield statement is used in generator functions to produce a sequence of values, one at a time, without loading the entire sequence into memory. This is particularly useful for working with large datasets or infinite sequences. Here's a simple example. The finally block is used to define cleanup actions that should be performed whether an exception occurs or not. This is useful for releasing resources or closing files. Here's an example. Now, let's combine all three elements in a more complex example. Suppose we want to read a file line by line using a generator. In this example, the try block is used to open the file and yield each line. If a file not found error occurs, it is caught and handled in the except block. The finally block ensures that the file is closed, regardless of whether an exception was raised. Conclusion. Understanding and effectively using try, yield, and finally can significantly improve the robustness and readability of your Python code. Whether dealing with exceptions or managing resources, these constructs provide valuable tools for creating more reliable and efficient programs. ChatGPT. Certainly. Let's create an informative tutorial about Python's try, yield, and finally constructs with a code example. This tutorial will cover the basics of error handling with try and finally and demonstrate the use of yield in a generator function. Python provides powerful constructs for error handling, and the combination of try, yield, and finally can be particularly useful in certain scenarios. In this tutorial, we will explore how these constructs can work together, using practical examples to illustrate their usage. The try and finally blocks in Python are commonly used for error handling and cleanup operations. The try block contains the code that may raise an exception, and the finally block ensures that code within it is executed regardless of whether an exception is raised or not. Let's consider an example where we open a file, perform some operations, and ensure that the file is closed, even if an exception occurs. In this example, the finally block guarantees that the file.close statement is executed, even if an exception occurs inside the try block. The yield keyword is used in Python to create generator functions. These functions can be paused and resumed, allowing for the efficient iteration over large datasets without loading everything into memory at once. Let's create a simple generator function that yields squares of numbers up to a specified limit. In this example, calling generate_squares, 5, will not compute all squares at once. Instead, it will generate the squares one by one when iterated over. Now, let's combine these concepts in a practical example. Consider a scenario where we want to read lines from a file and yield each line as we process it. In this example, the try block reads lines from the file, processes each line, and yields the result. The finally block ensures that the file is closed, even if an exception occurs during processing. The combination of try, yield, and finally in Python provides a powerful mechanism for error handling, resource management, and efficient processing of large data sets. Understanding how these constructs work together can enhance your ability to write robust and maintainable code. ChatGPT